Some of you honestly have got some amazing kind of FBI level observation skills. And a lot of you have been telling me over the weeks and months that there are certain plants that we spotted or we know that are in your collection, but we never see that. Today, we correct that. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. Okay, so after the conservatory tour and the houseplant tour in my house, a lot of you were sitting there spotting plants that you're just like, Memo, you haven't highlighted this enough, or we haven't seen it for a long time, and honestly, fair. So many plants. The videos would be like 5 to 6 hours long. But yes, today I want to highlight, give you some background, some stories on some of these plants that you don't see very often or almost at all on my channel, including one that a lot of people constantly are asking me about on this channel, and diving into that a bit more. It's a bit of a big plant, that might give you a first hint, but I do have a propagation of it that I can easily kind of show to the camera and we can kind of talk through it. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, we'll start off with one that you might have seen on occasion, but I haven't shown you for a while, and it is getting quite large. And this is the Rhaphidophora korthalsii. I'll put the name somewhere on the screen, basically. But you can kind of see how tiny, tiny it started. And this was, if I'm not mistaken, a purchase from Grow Tropicals. I think my code for 10% off if you're kind of looking to buy any plants in the spring is still available, so I'll put it on the screen there. But this is a velvety type of Rhaphidophora. Yes, it is a shingler. Yes, I also know a lot of people don't like them. Yes, it is in a moss pole. I will say I can't see any roots at the back of the clear moss pole, so this could be one that you could easily, as with most shinglers, grow on just a plank. And I did a whole video on growing plants on a plank. I'll again link it somewhere on the screen. But this is growing gloriously, and I'll bring it in so you can kind of see quite how interesting this plant is. And I like it because the leaves are quite large. They are definitely velvety. They're on the lighter green side of things. This also really doesn't need an awful lot of light. I've got it there. Yes, there is a grow light that's kind of pushing through, but it needs to get through a whole bunch of other plants to get through this. So actually, this is not getting a huge deal of light, and it's growing really, really well. This also had grown steadily throughout the winter. It wasn't one really that stopped even in the winter. It just slowed down, which is fine. But again, note how small the pot is, and I'm still nowhere near needing to repot this. I'm looking at the roots, and none of them are circling. None of this is root bound. So it is a low maintenance plant, and again, I know a lot of people don't necessarily want to go for shinglers, and I get that, but this is an interesting one that you don't see very often, actually. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with this. You can see how I've tried to kind of move it a bit because it's trying to go off the moss pole, so we'll see how well that goes if it doesn't root in too much. But yeah, really, really, really fun plant, and one that I don't show as often on my channel. I know I've shown this a few times. Also, apologies if I'm sounding a bit bunged up. Yesterday was my birthday, and it's been a long work week as well as everything else, and I appreciate the fact that everybody was quite happy to only have the one video this week that I'm filming, basically, so that by the time you see this, it would have been the previous week. But on top of that as well, sorry, you understand why I've got even more brain fog than normally now. I've also been like dealing with a cold for the last week and a half, and I'd love to say I'm at the tail end of it, but I'm not sure I'm quite there yet. So I'm still a bit stuffy and a bit bunged up and a bit coughy, so apologies if I'm sounding a bit off today. But yes, sorry, enough about that. This is another plant that you don't see very often on my channel, and hopefully that is focusing. This is very, very small, so I'll see how well or not well it shows up on the screen, and I'll kind of put a video if I need to. This, and I can never remember the name of this, Operculicarya, pachypus, I don't know. Very difficult name. Again, I'll put it on the on the screen because this is stumping me as well. So, Operculicarya pachypus. Pachy in Greek means fat. And I don't think the rest of the name is ancient Greek, but that part of it might be the pachypus. I don't know where the pus is from, but if you have a look into the soil and if it focuses, you might notice there, this is almost growing like a bit of a codex plant at the base, and then it's sprouting up. The reason why I thought I'd bring this up and show you this, and also I cannot remember the person who gave me this at the London plant swap. I think it was last year or even possibly the year before. If you are watching this, thank you so much. This is growing really, really well. It's had its ups and downs, and I'll talk about this, but this is very reminiscent of a plant that I know a lot of people have loved on my channel, and it's a plant that is native to New Zealand, or at least it grows in New Zealand, which is the little baby. And I'll see if I can put the name of that here as well, and I'll see if I can find a picture. I sadly don't own one anymore, but I'll see if I can put it here. Very, very, very cool plant. I know in New Zealand it grows like a bit of a bush, so it is one that people from New Zealand are a bit like, oh, why are you growing it indoors? And I think I had one of you guys basically mention they were based, I think, in Florida. And I think when I was doing the tour, they spotted the Spanish moss and they found it absolutely hysterical, which I get, by the way. I thought it was so funny, the comment. They were just like, why would you want to grow like Spanish moss indoors? Because obviously, I'm pretty sure that in at least, if not the whole of Florida, but there are pockets of Florida or maybe the southern United States that it does kind of just hang naturally off most trees, basically. And I think their comment was, are you going to be growing mistletoe like randomly in your house? Which is parasitic, by the way. I don't think Spanish moss is. I think Spanish moss just kind of hangs on things. I don't think it will actually ever truly take nutrients away from the plant. But yes, I thought it was hysterical. It's somebody else's kind of like unwanted, like weed type plant. It's somebody else's favorite houseplant. Shout out down below from the people in the UK that think, and I know there's some people in the UK that do enjoy this, the people in the UK that find it a bit weird that people are growing ivy in their houses, considering how much people try to get it out from their gardens here. So yes, we've had conversations of this before. A lot of these plants are weeds in their locations, but for us, they're just like, it's a house plant, it's okay. So, off topic. Shocking. But this is a very, very cool plant. Now, let me give you some background on this. So, this is one, as I said, I got it from the London plant swap, and I was treating it a bit more like the little baby. It's slightly different. So originally, and if you are the person that gave me this came in a closed vessel, basically. And I did okay with it for the first year, and it was struggling a bit, and I kind of realized that I'm not going to try too much to keep it in a closed vessel because I'm not comfortable with watering plants in closed vessels for my care kind of routines, basically. So I think some of that was being caused by that. I am sure people can grow this in a closed vessel and get great results. It just didn't work for me, basically. So I just went to a kind of a regular pot with kind of drainage holes, and I put it in some cactus soil mix, because if I'm not mistaken, this also, as does the little baby, this originates from South Africa. So South Africans kind of soil a bit, and a bit of the climate is very reminiscent at times a bit to Greece and Cyprus. So I'm just like, okay, I kind of know what this is probably going to need. And I had this in a south-facing window, and it was still struggling a bit, but it was getting shaded by other plants. So since I have then moved it here, and it's next to a radiator, so in the winter it stayed warm enough, and it was directly underneath a relatively bright grow light. And you might notice that some of the leaves are a bit on the brighter green rather than a darker green. So when you give it less light, you'll get darker green leaves. I don't mind it having lighter green leaves because it just throws out leaves all the time. This does grow, I will say, faster than the little baby, although, and I think part of the reason why I don't show this as often is, with the exception of that one person that I got this from at the London plant swap, I don't think I have ever heard anybody talk about this plant. And it's such a shame because it's a very cool plant. But it might also be that this plant isn't one that comes available to a lot of people very often. But, you know what I mean, with my weirdos, this is a nice weird plant, and I've definitely enjoyed growing this. Okay, now, shall we talk about the elephant in the room? I'm talking about the red elephant behind me before anybody else gets smart. So this is a plant that a lot of people, almost always ask me in my videos. And do let me know, because this is something I used to do a while back, like at least a year or two ago, where at the very end of my videos, I had just a picture of all of the plants behind me with labels on them. And I think people found it quite useful, and like it kind of saves people the kind of hassle of asking me the question basically all the time. Tell me if you want me to bring that back into these videos, where I have a picture at the end, at the very, very end, with labels so you can kind of potentially see what the plant is that you're curious about. But for the people that have not been here and they're relatively new, that maybe haven't heard me say this a few times already, this plant here, the one that you're seeing with red leaves, is the Philodendron Dark Lord. Now, the reason why I don't focus on this as much is because this is a very, possibly one of the most difficult plants that I have in my entire collection to bring down. Because, and this is actually some good information in case you're ever thinking about getting the Dark Lord. I think I've done a review. If I have done a review, I'll link it somewhere at the top of this video as well. But a few things to know. It does not grow particularly fast. I have owned this plant about 5 years, if not 6 years at this point. And I've got a propagation here to show you. And I've actually propagated this 2 or 3 times, so I've got different versions of it. I've got another one that's behind me that you probably never see. There's some red leaves right there in the back. Maybe you might see peeking through. That is the propagate of the mother plant, and this is another propagate. So that propagate is in semi-hydro, and it always has a reservoir of water, even in the winter, because that grows steadily. If slowly, they all grow slowly. And this is a cutting that I took where it was literally just this leaf and this leaf that was a bit busted, but it was from the original mother plant. That's still a propagate, by the way. The original mother plant is underneath the plant shelf. It looks janky as nothing, basically. It's a very long stem with like a few like scraggly leaves, but I leave it on there because it's very much well rooted, again, in semi-hydro. This I am growing in soil for the first time, and it's doing quite well. It's got its first new leaf. It has taken a while to establish and root itself out. This is another plant that the roots are almost the same kind of color red that you're getting here. Now, older leaves, and that's the reality of this one as well, because I know a lot of people are interested in them. The reality is most of the times, and hopefully that's picking up on the camera, if not, I'll add a picture. The reality is the leaves, when they first come in, they come in this green color. There is no redness to the back, and as it matures, as that leaf is on there for a while, this leaf surface will go a darker green, and the back will start getting that kind of reddish, blood reddish color. Now, when they get even older, and depending on how much light they get, I find, the front can sometimes go red as well. So that's why sometimes when you're seeing some of these red leaves here, by the way, because we've been talking about old leaves on older plants, this leaf here has probably been on this plant at least 3 or 4 years already. So that gives you a context there as well. So these 2 leaves, that were the original ones that were from the cutting, were originally green in the front, and it's taken them nearly a year to get to this red color. So bear that in mind. Beautiful plant. Would I recommend it to people? To this day, yes. This is still one of my firm favorites in my collection, probably very close to my Philodendron esmeraldense, and this is like kind of one of the oldest leaves here, but you can see some of the newest green leaves. You've seen it in the previous tour. But yeah, this has definitely been a relatively straightforward plant. It's not particularly fussy. It doesn't grow particularly fast, I will say that. It doesn't need a moss pole. If I'd grown this on a moss pole, would I have potentially got bigger leaves? Maybe, but the leaves are still sizing up. Some of these leaves are absolutely huge at the top, and it's annoying because it's reached the top of my conservatory, so I'm going to need to chop and prop the top bit because it's starting to bend on the glass at the top. But super cool plant. I've given you an indication of how the color would translate as it gets older. If you've had different experiences, as with any of my videos, please do drop it in the comments down below and let people know. This was never a particularly easy plant to find. It became slightly easier when I got this, the original mother plant, like 5 or 6 years. I think this propagate here is probably 4 years old now, maybe 5, and the mother is 6 years old. So yes, I think I got the mother plant in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, and within a year I'd taken this cutting and it's been growing since then, basically. So it kind of almost it's a year younger than the mother plant, basically. This was a cutting that I took at the end of the summer last year, so this isn't even a year old, and it's taken a while. And in the winter, it took a bit of a pause, which I was fine with, and it didn't get watered quite as frequently. But yes, and this is one, by the way, that I just took a cutting. Nothing was rooted in, nothing was watered, and I just shoved it in some soil and just go, survive or die, I've got enough of you that I don't need more cuttings. But it did survive. So yeah, that's a good one. But yes, Philodendron Dark Lord, still worth it if you can find it, and hopefully I would imagine the prices have come down on this as well. It was never a hugely popular plant. It became a bit popular, but it wasn't hugely popular as well. And it's, again, back to, if you can find it, grab one, because it doesn't come up very often, I think, at least in my location. You might be different where you are living, but yes, Philodendron Dark Lord. And now another plant that I wanted for a long time, and this was on some of my wish list videos, and somebody was mentioning that they thought they saw this plant, or did I have this plant, and if I had any experiences with them. So hopefully that individual is watching this video, because I'm going to go into the Labisia turtleback, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, the Labisia turtleback is a plant that I don't even know if I've mentioned that I finally got it in my collection, but I did, and you can kind of see the back of the leaves as well there. They're quite red. There's a new leaf that's coming in here. This is, I think, coming up to a year since I've owned it, and it took a beat to start growing. And I can tell you my experiences with it as well. One of the most important thing I found with this plant is it has very specific light requirements. So what I will do is pop at the top there what light I am giving it, and I'm giving the plant that light about 12 to 14 hours a day, year round. So bear that in mind. It was less fussed with the temperature change. Even in the winter it was okay. I just didn't water it as frequently. I did let it go dry and then water it, but not dry for days, just dry and then water it, basically. But very slow growing plant, very, very slow growing plant. So I think this leaf and this leaf and this leaf and the newest one there, and maybe one more. So 3, 4, 5 leaves in a year so far. So it's not the fastest of growing plants. It can be a bit fussy. I have got it in a regular clear pot with holes, and originally I had it, and I think I still do, I'll check and put it at the top there, in my Anthurium soil mix, or not my Anthurium soil mix, Soil Ninja's Anthurium soil mix, so very, very airy, because I think from what I've seen online, this has a propensity to go towards rot like that. It also really does not like bright light. It really doesn't like low light. It's truly one of those plants that I think is happiest at medium light. That's why I said I'd give you my medium light that I'm giving it on there as well. And from what I've seen with this, if you do get it after years of growing, it goes a bit palm-esque. So it's a bit bare at the bottom, and usually you get like a flush of leaves at the top. This is very similar to the Aglaonema pictum tricolor, the way that that grows. So bear that in mind. But the reality is that will be many years later. With the Aglaonema pictum tricolor, it gets there much sooner. But do I regret getting this plant? Absolutely not. Am I still enjoying growing this plant? 100%. This has been an absolute joy, and I mean, you cannot get away from the texture of those leaves. I mean, that is insanity. So cool. Right. And moving along to a plant that was a bit of a bone of contention for some people, that they said I didn't spend enough time during the tour showing this. This is the Anthurium peltigerum, and I know I don't usually pick it up to show. It's in a very precarious place of my collection. I'm just like, is that a mealybug? It isn't. So we're good. There are reasons for that. So people are just like, it looks like it hasn't grown too much. It hasn't grown too much. I'm not going to lie about that, but it's not because there's anything wrong with this plant, at least in my experience. This is getting a lot of light, by the way. This is at the very top of my plant shelf. This is a plant that is very slow, and I would say I think I'm coming up to the second year of owning this. It does almost entirely nothing in the winter. You just need to keep it alive. That's the only thing, which can be a challenge with this plant because it will go towards root rot super quickly. And I did have some of the roots that were rotting out towards the end of the winter, which was fine. But what I have since done, and you'll see this is looking super healthy. I've put it in a net pot. Look at those roots. predominantly in the front. I think there's some at the back as well. Hopefully that is focusing nicely. But annoyingly, and you might be able to notice right there, there's a little stem, and anybody who grows slow-growing plants, so maybe grow one leaf every 3 to 4 months, when you accidentally snap a leaf, it's like a little bit of your soul dies with it. That, because this dum-dum decided on this specific plant, which is super fragile, as most Anthuriums tend to be when they're getting new leaves, but this one even more so, to repot that into the net pot when the leaf was still and I knocked it slightly, but it was enough that when I was growing it, I'm just like, please don't reject, please do not show signs that I snapped you, and it snapped. But already, and that is something that I will say about this, already I am seeing a growth point starting. So in the summer, it does get faster. I will burst your bubble right now, and hopefully I think other people that have grown this will agree with me. If you want a fast-growing Anthurium, the peltigerum is not for you, which also explains why this damn plant is as expensive as it is when you find it at a decent size, because it takes a while to get there. Do not get me wrong, I love this plant. This is giving me alien vibes. It's like the Forgetii and the Anthurium veitchii have had a baby, because look at those, whilst I try not to like break everything underneath me, look at those leaves. There's ruffles, there's a closed sinus. It's very, very cool. Very, very cool. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm an elder millennial, but this is giving me Cocoon vibes, the movie. I don't know why. Do not come for me, but it's very cool. It's very, very cool, and I do love this plant. And as I said, and I'll say this because this surprised me how quickly those roots that are coming out of the net pot, less than a month. And considering how slowly this plant roots out, or did used to root out, and how slowly it used to be to push out a new leaf since an old leaf had just come out. Again, remember the snap leaf that probably happened about a month ago? To be getting a new growth point quite so quickly, and I know we're coming into spring, so there is some of that as well. But the net pot for this plant, for the win. I did give this, and this is a cement, this is quite heavy. This is a cement square pot, and the only reason why I've given this is to keep that a bit more moist, still giving it the air because of the round pot in a square pot. Does that make sense? The little like corners. But also to keep this upright, because this is a very light pot in a very light soil solution or media basically mix in essentially a net pot that weighs almost nothing with a very top heavy plant. These leaves are heavy. So I needed something to hold it up so it doesn't just topple over and break all of its leaves, and I would then cry in the corners so much because it takes so long to get these back. But yes, peltigerum, very gingerly showing it to you because I don't want to break any more leaves. Right, and a quick honourable mention in this section. The two Calatheas that are the rosy something, I'll put them at the top there. I can't remember the name because I wasn't particularly fussed about which Calathea it was, but this is my little experiment. So, both plants. So one is in what would be traditionally Calathea soil mix in a regular plastic pot, and then this is being grown in, hopefully it will focus, there you go. This is being grown in just, again, fine, not huge chunks, but fine orchid bark. And they are pretty much neck and neck. Pretty much neck and neck. I would argue to say that the leaves on this specific Calathea and the orchid bark are doing a bit better than these ones. Still growing relatively slowly. They're still baby plants, but so far so good with this. I will hasten to add this, because I've had to dial in the watering to get it to the point where it's dry enough to need watering. This gets watered now under a grow light, by the way, relatively far away from a grow light. But under a grow light, stable conditions, stable humidity, this gets watered once every 8 to 10 days, I think, at this point in time. This gets watered every 2 days. And I need to take it out, put it in, soak it in water for 2 days. Soak it in water for a couple of minutes, put it back, and then do the same after 2 days. So what I've done with this now, instead of just having it completely exposed, is give it a bit of a net pot and a bit of a cache pot over the net pot just to keep that moisture in a bit more, and I'm watering a bit less frequently because yes, my point for this experiment is to kind of say, look, I'm growing it in the lightest soil or growing media that I can, which is orchid bark versus soil, and it's still doing fine. I knew going into this, I'm not a dum-dum, that if it's just going to be with that much air and very little things to keep moisture in, that I would be watering this a lot more frequently. But at the same time, I don't want to be watering this every 2 days. So cash po with this, absolutely fine. Less babying for this than I've had to do for this. To be fair, this has not had that much babying either. But, oh, interesting. Hold on. Interesting, because this leaf was a bit ruffly, and I'm just like, why are you ruffly? Oh, no. Ignore me. You know when you see something white, and I'm just like, oh, this has got mealybugs. No, perlite. It's fine. But yes, that's how the experiment is going on. It's not even like, it's probably maybe a month and a bit so far that this has started. But I will keep you posted on this semi-frequently. Tell me how often you want to know about how well or badly this is going, and I can give you updates. Okay, penultimate plant, and then we'll wrap up, basically. But this is one that you don't see very often. I've shown it a few times. This is my Monstera gracilis. And I've finally given this a moss pole because it was getting large enough. It doesn't look like it's very large, but it was getting large enough that I can actually get a moss pole in there with it. Will say this is the most root rot sensitive Monstera I have ever owned. Granted, I got this as a very young seedling and it was still not cheap, but do have a look at what mature forms of the Monstera gracilis look like. It's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I don't know if anybody would go through this much hassle for this plant that I've done, but we are where we are. But what I've had to do with this is the lightest of Anthurium soil mixes, again from Soil Ninja. Super, super airy, and I've supplemented it with leca in it as well. So I'm not growing this in a semi-hydro format, I'm growing this as if it's regular soil mix, but even more airy than that. It's got all the air holes around on this kind of clear pot. To be fair, this might be one that might benefit from something like a net pot. Watch this space. I don't know if that's going to get moved. I don't want to jostle this any more than I already have recently. But it's keeping more leaves now. Believe it or not, the fact that it's keeping 4 relatively large leaves, they have not started to split. It's not mature enough to do that. This is also a very slow growing Anthurium seedling, like some of the, not Anthurium, Monstera seedlings. Some of the other Monsteras, when you get them this young, usually within a few months, you're starting to start looking at adolescent leaves or slightly more mature looking leaves. This takes its time. This takes its time. The leaves aren't as thick, and they are leathery, but they're not as thick as the Monstera Burley Marks Flame, which I also have got, and I can show you that in another video. But this is one that is thinner leaves, thinner than the Deliciosa up until now, thicker than the Obliqua Peru. Does that give you a bit of a benchmark? But yeah, so for the longest period of time, this was always in the single leaf club or dual leaf club, and the more happy it's getting, the more leaves I'm able to maintain whilst it's not rejecting some of its lowest leaves. So far, so good with this, but this is a long-term project. I'll keep you posted if you're interested. Do let me know down below if you want to know more about how I get on with the Monstera gracilis. If anybody also has got any way of having a slightly more mature form of this, I know they're not easy to come by or cheap, do let me know. Depending on the price, I might get it because I've got zero patience, but so far I've enjoyed growing this. It's okay, it's okay. And I'm okay with plants that are slightly more diminutive in this space because too big, too big. Too big, too many big plants, too many big plants for right now. Okay, and we'll finish with one that you haven't seen for a while. I'm trying to remember the name. I remember the second part of the name. So this is the Columnea sanguinea. So if I'm not mistaken, somebody did say on the previous video when I was unboxing this, that this is part of the Gesneriad family, and it definitely has those kind of fuzzy, petable leaves, but for the people that might remember, business in the front, party in the back. It also looks like other things, even more so now when there's not as much red. The ladies in the comments will know. But it can get more red on the backs. It's very splashy. For whoever said that to me, thanks for saying that, but also at the same time, I can't unsee it now. still business in the front and party-ish at the back. But it's been growing happily. It's been a relatively easy plant to grow. I think this is also not this specific Columnea, but I think Columneas are also what is known as a goldfish plant, I think. I'm not entirely sure. The blooms, it was really odd. It would get these blooms at the beginning of spring, and they wouldn't really ever open up fully, and then I'd see them kind of like dry up and go to nothing. I've never pollinated them. Can we see, if I can get this to focus, can we see the berries? One berry there and quite a few on this side as well. So really, really odd. I'm leaving them on there. I don't know. It's one of those things that's just really odd. And I'm just like, there's absolutely zero pollinators in here. Like zero pollinators. I'm in a closed conservatory. So I don't know how I'm getting berries on this. But it's still a very, very cool plant. The leaves are getting larger and larger, and you still get the interest. I don't know. This is a weirdo. And you know me with my weirdos. I like my weirdos. In all fairness, I used to be a weirdo. But the other thing that I will show you, and I don't know if it's just mine or if it's all of these plants, because you'd look at it and just go, okay, there's a leaf there, there's a leaf there, there's a leaf there, there's a leaf there, and that's how it grows. No. If I bring it in a bit closer, again, without knocking everything back, can you see that little diddy leaf here? Like right there. That is the pair to this one, and it happens on every single leaf. So one big leaf, one small leaf, one big leaf, one small leaf. It's really, really odd. And I think that is how it's meant to grow, because if I look down the entirety of that stem, I'm seeing that everywhere. So this is a very... It's a weirdo. As I said, it's a very cool and unusual plant, and I'm really hoping that Grow Tropicals brings these back. These are very, very cool. You know, when you just like, I'd never really heard or known anything about these plants, and I saw it on their website and I was like, oh, this nice. This is really nice. And it's nice when something like that pans out, because this has not been a difficult plant. So, net pot. It is in an Anthurium soil mix to begin with, but it was actually, no, I left it in the growers mix because I was a bit like, oh, very, very thin roots. Think begonia type roots. Very, very thin, hair-like roots. But it was already getting dry, and it was getting to the point now where I had to water it like once every 2 days. And I was like, right, you are too dry, you need an up pot, this has recently been up potted into this. And I think around it, I just added regular, slightly amended, slightly airier houseplant soil mix, just a standard box standard one, and it's doing absolutely fine. It's close to a bit of a grow light, which is why you might be seeing some of the yellowing that's happening. That is because it's getting a bit bleached out from the grow light, but it seems to be growing happily, so I'm just going to let it do its own thing. But yeah, sanguinea, Columnea sanguinea. Oh, such a cool plant. But yes, I think that's everything that I wanted to touch on this video. You know me and my collection, there are more that you probably don't see. I know somebody was talking about the tenue, and I was trying to get you the Philodendron tenue out. Both the mother plant and the propagation are so intertwined with other plants now that it's a pain in the bum. So I'll maybe try for another video. But on that point, do you want another one of these videos? I could do these every like month or two, basically, of just kind of showcasing some plants that you don't see as often on my channel. I can't promise you that it's always going to be the big ones, unless I'm kind of like not overworked enough that I can kind of lift up cameras and kind of show you some of the bigger plants up close. I can still do that, but it might be one that I kind of open it up to all of you and just kind of say, okay, you know, maybe in the community post here on YouTube, and maybe on a poll on Instagram or a question on Instagram, where you can tell me, look, can we see this plant, please? And if there's enough people for one plant, or if there's one that I'm just like, oh yes, I really have not shown that for a long time, I will do that. But do let me know in the comments down below if you'd be interested in something like that, and I could always kind of bring things up and show you. And this is the other important thing as well. I can also tell you which plants are no longer here, because that's something that a lot of people don't always think about, because I've got people that have been watching my channel for years, and they might have seen a video recently, but a video that I did 3 years ago, and a plant that I don't have anymore, that it might have died, or I might have gifted it somewhere, or I might have not have liked it and just got rid of it entirely. And they were just like, oh, you haven't shown this plant for a while. I'm just like, there's a reason for that. I don't have it anymore, so I can't show you that plant anymore. And I think that's that level of honesty is good from us content creators. So actually asking questions about seeing some of the plants and some of the ones that maybe you haven't seen for a while, and just kind of going, show us, and then I can be like, I can't show you, it's not here anymore. And that's valuable information, I think, because I'm not going to spend every video saying these are the plants that have died this week. Yeah, but yes. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.